this week I was transferring a lot of files. In that, I had personal files that were on my work, system. So I was transferring over to my personal Google Drive, and I found some letters that I wrote to a dad. It's
all right.
That's
good.
That's right.
In the crane over here that was shipping at this time.
So good morning. Welcome to the Forge. Darren and Kyle, my two brothers. It is good to be here. It's exciting to be here. We've been working on this for a long time, and it feels crazy to even be down here because things are so busy back at the office that it feels like we don't even have time to be investing in this. But I want to introduce my two brothers, Darren and Kyle. I'm Ryan Miller, and my two brothers, Darren and Kyle. Darren is my second brother. Darren is about 5 years younger than me, right, Darren?
I am 40 years old.
40 years old. I'm 45. Kyle is like
34
years old. So,
baby.
we're three brothers, the only three brothers in the Miller family. And we also have three sisters that grew up in the family business as well. And so today, just want to talk about how we got here in family business, how we started doing all this stuff that we're doing today. It certainly didn't start the way that it looks today, right? So, and we'll talk a little bit about some history, where we came from, where we're going, what we're trying to build here as a company, and then also digging into maybe just the relationship between us three brothers and the challenges we face there sometimes. And then thirdly is kind of ending maybe with where we're at today, state of PWI today, state of business today, and what we're wrestling with today. And we have challenges. And so as small businesses, everybody's struggling. And so we want to make sure that we're wrestling with the exact same stuff that everybody else is. It doesn't matter if it's HVAC or if it's fabrication shops or if it's construction companies. We're working alongside those guys every day in the trades, and we get it. Like we freaking get it. It's really hard.
None of this is anything to do with us having it figured out.
No kidding.
We don't have it figured out. We're trying to figure some things out. We got a couple things that worked for us a little bit. But generally speaking, we are at the very, very beginning of trying to build something here, and obviously all with God's help, and can't do anything without Him. And I was watching a video the other day. The guy said that he had a Lamborghini. He was showing up at a school to pick up some kid that was getting bullied or something, and it was just being kind to them. It was really cool, like a kind of one of those heartfelt moments type videos. And one of the other kids that was at the school said, "Man, is that your car? Is that your car?" And he said, "No, it's actually God's car. He's just let me borrow it for a while." and I love that way of saying it. And that's literally what we feel like our company is, for sure.
We're stewards, right? I mean, I always say, this thing's way bigger than me. It's way bigger than us. And we want to honor God in what we're doing. You agree with that, Darren?
Yeah, actually the timing of this is pretty crazy. So one of the things we're doing right now, and we'll get into it probably later in our business, is we're getting a whole new operating system. So we're going a whole new ERP, and through that this week, part of those changes are going from our first system to the new system. So this week I was transferring a lot of files. In that, I had personal files that were on my work system. So I was transferring over to my personal Google Drive, and I found some letters that I wrote to a dad. It's
all right.
That's good.
That's right. I told him thank you because Dad passed away a couple years ago, and
about 8 years ago, actually,
2017. And so I thanked him for all the things he taught us, and I just remembered. So how we got there is we all worked in the shop, including our sisters. All of us, 6 kids, worked in the shop in various roles. But the importance of what we were taught was the importance of everything he let us, Dad let us try things out, and he did not tell us. He gave us advice when we wanted it, and he would tell us if something was dumb some of the times, but other times he would just let us fail.
Yeah,
He let me fail often, actually. And one cool story I have real quick here is my brother Ryan here. This is my favorite. This explains my dad the best. Is that I was welding something in the shop one day, and I was fixing something for a customer because we do a lot of repairs. We had a 3-man, 4-man shop, so I was doing a repair or making a bracket, and I had welded something up, and so the paint shop was right there. The paint shop was in the shop. So you grab the spray can and
The fab shop was the paint shop, right? Yeah.
Right. And so we would paint this thing. So I was getting a brand new cane. It was a spruce spray can. The brand spruce. They were $5 or $6 a piece. I grabbed the spray can. I started to shake it up, but to remove the cap, there's several ways to remove that cap. I was probably 13 or 14. So, child labor basically, So, and to remove the cap, you could either twist the cap really hard, or you could take a screwdriver. And Ryan said, take a screwdriver, put it in the little slot, and pop the cap off. Or
That's truly the right way to do it, by the way.
that's what Ryan told me at the time. Sorry, or if you're cocky like me, you could take the spray can and take it on the side of the workbench and just slap the thing.
Yeah.
It'll pop the cap off. But
You hit the cap, the plastic part of the cap. Yeah.
yeah, but over half the time you'll break off the nozzle.
Yeah.
And which the whole can is junk. Yeah. Okay, but I was cocky. I'm not cocky anymore. Definitely have.
That's true. Yeah.
Right. Definitely.
Humility is
have
Darren's middle name.
Exactly. And I was shaking the can. I went up to knock the can off, to do it my way. And then Ryan stopped me, and Ryan's like, no. Use the screwdriver method. And Dad was there, and Dad was like, told Ryan, no, let him do it his way. So I was like, yeah. And so I smacked it on the side of the table, and I broke the kit up and just broke the thing off. It was a $5 can of paint, and we tossed it in the trash. And then Dad said, now you learned your lesson.
Yeah.
And so that was a powerful, because I am my personality is really strong, and my way is the best. But I learned,
which is really what we still wrestle with today. We all three, we're all three high DIs on the disc profile, and we all three have opinions. That's what makes working with family, working with your two brothers so hard. I want to dive this. I want to pull this back to 1979. Okay, so our parents, Paul and Susan Miller, bought a 2.5 acre property south of Nappanee, Indiana. Nobody knows where that's at, but that's in the middle of a cornfield in Indiana, about as flat and as boring as you can get. Maybe not quite as bad as Kansas, but cornfields essentially. So
better than Kansas.
So it's better than Kansas. Okay, better than Kansas.
Easily.
My dad grew up on a farm, and he liked the repair side of the business. The repair side of the farm worked better than he did working in the field, and so he left his family business and started this company with my mom. And so
Took a huge risk.
Took a huge risk. And grateful that he did that, but quite honestly, didn't have a lot of vision. He called it Paul's Welding and Repair in those early days. That was the big sign up by State Road 19. Grandpa
did help him get started too.
Yeah. He got a little cash or a little inheritance early, investment, whatever that was, to help start the business. So essentially, we all grew up in the business. I mean, I'm the oldest son. I was born in 1980 the next year. And, at 5, 6 years old, I was out there in the shop helping my dad welding. I'm not sure the other brothers were quite as early as I was, because my dad needed me in the shop.
How old were you?
I think I was 6 years old when I was welding out there.
Every time you say that, it gets
absolutely
a year
not
early.
Not for customers. I was welding.
Not true.
So Dad would always give us all the free steel we wanted to have to be able to play with stuff and build stuff. And I'm talking about just building stuff, just welding stuff together, and playing with, making a pitchfork or something. Just making guns, whatever.
Make guns.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit, Kyle. Tell us a little bit about the. Kyle came along, the latest of all. So that was the early years in the '80s. of our dad trying to build this welding shop business, which is a lot of farm repair. Let's just kind of cover the 80s a little bit. Kyle, you were born in
92.
So let's actually hit Darren for that question. What do you remember in the 80s? Those
I
early
was
years.
85, so I don't know. I mean, probably 90s before I remember anything. So
fast forward then. I mean, and that's what there was 2 or 3 employees in the shop, and let's fast forward into the 90s then. So in the mid 90s,
Right,
there was still only 4 or 5 employees total in the shop. Maybe only 3 or 4 actually.
I think you should mention Ryan. Dad was a farmer, and so he was fixing farm stuff because of the relationships he had.
Yeah.
And the things he knew about farming.
Yeah.
And so that's what it was just natural. And then he would build small things sometimes like a custom whatever type of implement for a tractor, something that a farmer needed, but he also knew kind of how that was.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of his skill set because he was a farmer. You know what I mean? But so just general fabrication was what he was learning, but he knew the farming.
Yeah. So it's important to note the farming industry was a lot different back then than it was today, as everybody probably knows that. But so back in the day, the farmers did not have much of a repair shop. They really didn't have a welder, maybe a stick welder, but
You're saying their own shed to go in and repair things.
Yes, so they would come to the shop literally every other day. But there's local farmers that I would see every other day in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so they would come, and that's where they bought steel. That's where they got their breakfast, which was a candy bar and a Mountain Dew, and that's where they got their PTOs fixed, hydraulic hoses. So everything was there. They wouldn't go to Napa in town. They would stop in and get a hydraulic hose made.
Yeah.
Every 2 or 3 hours,
which is a really key point, because that's probably where we learned relationship from our dad. Dad had a very, very good relationship with all the local farmers and construction workers, people that would come in to get things repaired.
On a rainy day, the farmers would, if they were bored, they would come and play basketball at the shop. I learned that recently.
Yeah.
My dad playing basketball was also
hard to fathom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. So those were the early years. Losing my voice here. Those were the early years of Paul's Welding, which is now PWI. And PWI stands for Paul's Welding Incorporated. At least it used to, but today it's just PWI. Those 3 letters. But let's go back into the 90s. So into the 90s, we talked about this a lot. And Kyle, you were just a kid. You were just a baby in the 90s. But somewhere in the mid 90s, what I always say is the manufacturing places of northern Indiana, which is a lot of manufacturing. So we are in the middle of a cornfield. That hasn't changed in 5 decades. But what has changed a lot is that manufacturing has just grown a lot. And so you had the Utilimasters, and you had the Holiday Ramblers, which was then Monaco, which is now part of Thor RV industry that was growing there. You had Newmar branching off and building their own first plant. You had Keystone firing up late 90s. I believe. So some of these RV plants and other manufacturers were really getting growing. And so what happened is they would call our dad in those early years and say, "Hey, can you weld? Put a beam in the ceiling of our building. We have a hoist and trolley."
Heckman Homes and Fairmont.
Yeah, guys. Modular housing is also a big deal in our community as well. So that's really how it started. Was hey, can you weld this lifting beam into our ceiling? And we're a welding shop, so Dad would say, "Sure, why not?" And so we in those days we had one truck with a portable Miller Bobcat generator welder on the back, and we would go install that stuff. And a couple guys would leave the shop. There was no install crew or crews. They would leave the shop and go install that stuff. And so I remember my mom dropping me off after school in the mid 90s, setting up Newmar's first big assembly plant, which was Plant 7, which was just about a mile from our school. And so and I would help at 15, 16, after school, help with that job. So that's kind of how we got started. What are some other things you guys want to add? Darren, what do you want to add to that? Because you would remember more than Kyle would.
One story, Monaco or Holiday Rambler back in the day, in Wakarusa was putting a plant up, and we were doing a big job there. And I remember Dad had a new truck. Dad bought a fairly new truck, which Ryan poked holes through it in the tailgate.
A few times, yeah.
Forklift holes right through the back of the tailgate, which that was just one of his mistakes. We'll get to more of them later.
Done the forklift safety training, Ryan.
Yeah, probably should have.
Anyhow, but
we didn't have the certified cards yet at that point. Yeah,
exactly.
But we were so from Wakarusa to south of Nappanee is about 13 miles or 12 miles, whatever that is, and so we would work all day Ryan, Dad, and myself would work all day up there, and then on the way home, I was still like 15. Which, how is that legal? I don't know, but I was there working. So, and then on the way home, Ryan,
OSHA
Dad,
was not quite as stringent back in the 90s. Let's just put it that way.
right, and so on the way home, we would drive. So I was 15. I was all anxious to drive, but I didn't have my license. So, as a single cab Ford F-150 long bed red truck, and so I sat in the middle. Ryan was in the passenger side. Dad was driving. They were both tired, but I was wide awake because I could drive. So I would drive. So Dad would put the cruise on, and I would drive, and they would both sleep, and I would have the cruise control with the speed with my left hand, and I was wide awake because I had 12 miles of driving experience. So,
oh my goodness, those were the early and safe years of PWI for sure. So, so let's jump into the 2000s here. And so again, the first 2 decades of the business were virtually the same as far as employee count, as far as what we were doing. Now, keep in mind, in the 90s, as we were doing some of this industrial work, we were still fixing farm repair stuff. So in the middle of building, one crane, we'd fix a combine the very next day, and it was just.
But there's also.
I was going to mention, Ryan, do you got to explain a little bit, maybe people that aren't in this area, in this Elkhart County area, which we're in Kosciuszko County, but very close in service. Most of our work is in Elkhart County.
Sure.
And in this area,
our regional work, yeah.
And so in Elkhart County is not the most populated county in the U.S. or anything like that, but for the people that do live there, it is the most dense area in the U.S. for manufacturing. So people working in manufacturing, per 1,000 is the number one in the U.S. So it's incredible amount. If you're the chances you're working in an RV factory or a modular home factory or a bunch of other industries is the highest percentage in the whole U.S. So even though it's a smaller population, it's not Houston, it's not Chicago, it's not wherever you want to pick some of your Philadelphia, whatever. Yeah. It's still high density manufacturing.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. One thing I want to note too is that so before we get into manufacturing is one thing that we'll get into later is that we in the early in the 90s Dad did he tried a lot of production parts. So we built the cable sealers for anhydrous applications. So we built thousands of those.
Remember those
sealers.
days? Yeah.
And that was a reusable part or a what do you call it? A consumable part of an anhydrous application in a field. So it would cover up the dirt as anhydrous was injected in the ground. So we
ran related, and our dad understood farming. So
we built mint wagons for Jeff Fervada's, and they're still in business. And so
Jeff Fervada's still farming mint.
Yeah,
right down the road from me.
So we built a lot of those repeat items. And Dad did a lot of he tried building mechanisms for doors for buses, and he tried to get into high quantity, high volume stuff. So so can I fast forward to how we got into more custom?
Sure. I wanted to hold that thought just a little bit. So let's just fast forward into early 2000s. And so one of the things that'll just break the news to you now is that both of our parents have died from cancer, and that was one of the hard things that we wrestled with as a family. So fast forward to early 2000s, I got married in 2002. My mom passed away from cancer in 2004. And what I often say is that I kind of checked out, or my dad kind of checked out at that time in 2004 as well. I always say when I lost Mom, I kind of lost Dad as well. We kind of lost Dad as well emotionally. He was there, he was around, but his drive for business and to growing the business kind of died along with my mother. So
not that his work ethic died,
no,
but his drive.
Yeah,
he worked. They
were both 49 when Mom passed.
Yeah, she was 49 years old.
So it was early. And it was a whole thing. Dad kind of
So Dad lost his CFO. He lost his,
office manager.
His business partner, really. Yeah. So rightfully so. It was some really, really hard years. Not that they're not all hard, but and challenging in their own ways. But just want to kind of set that time frame. So 2004, we're 25 years into the business, whatever that is, and we still were probably only 10 employees at that time, whatever that was. And so,
what year?
2004. Maybe 8 or 9, but I'd say sub 10 team members at that time. So what happened there is I'm the oldest brother, and I dropped out of high school to do this, and I'm thankful. In fact, we all three did, which is something that I used to be ashamed of talking about because I didn't have my diploma and all that. But I really look at it as part of the story, part of the God story. If I had finished high school as the oldest brother. Again, Kyle was a little baby. I mean, a little kid, right? So
Still is kind of
kind of still is a little bit babies, right? So, but if I had finished high school, if I had went on to college and done something else, came back at 22, 23, I would have never ever been ready to work in the business and somewhat lead the business after my mom died and my dad obviously checked out. So, or our dad checked out. So, that's one kind of that's a pretty massive timeline stamp there is 2004. And so we're there. And by the way, Ryan, myself, terrible leader. I was trying to be a boss. I was pretty arrogant about what I knew and what I didn't know, and not very open with what I didn't know. And so just there's a lot of stories around that era of time that I think we could hit. Darren, what are some other memories you have around that very time? Around you were working in the shop in 04?
04, yeah. What I would do in 04ish. I would work in the shop. I mean, I was the paint. I would weld things. I would weld stairways. I would weld work platforms. Those are basically scaffolding for industrial, for RV factories. And I would then I was the paint guy. So when we had a paint day was a big deal because we didn't have a paint booth. We didn't have an area, a specified area to paint in.
Yeah.
So we would shut down the shop and we would put plastic over all the machinery. Basically a half a day of prep to paint in one project because it's a big deal.
Well, we'd throw plastic over the saw and over some of the other areas,
and then we'd get it all set up.
That was a cup gun, right? It was a cup gun with.
At first it was, and then we would switch to an airless sprayer.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
that. That took about 2 or 3 hours to clean out for me. Not that I'm the fastest, but so that was.
I forgot that you painted. Yeah,
it was a big deal. And then I would do on-site installs too. Kind of the full. That was a huge part for me because I was able to fab, paint, install, hook up trailers, deliver, deal with customers on site. Gives you a full spectrum of projects.
It does. So I want to clarify. Kyle mentioned about what our county, and I just want to say the blessing that Elkhart County is to the fact that we're here in this area is massive because we could be stuck in the middle of Missouri where there is no manufacturing, whatever that is.
We're crapping on Missouri and Kansas.
I know. I love
pick.
I have some friends in Missouri, so no, Missouri's fine.
Kansas doesn't.
But there is areas like Nebraska where it's just literally farming. There is no manufacturing anywhere. Some of the big cities do, but legit, we are in the hub of manufacturing. As Kyle said, number one manufacturing spot in the U.S. And a lot of those are
density.
Correct. Yeah, density. Not the biggest county, not the most populated county, but of this percentage, it's the highest density. So, but. Just want to shout out here to the RV industry customers that got us started. I mean, there is today we still work for all of them, for Forest River and for Coachman and for Newmar and for Winnebago and for Brinkley. All those guys, Thor, Keystone, Dutchman, Crossroads, Airstream in Ohio. But those guys really gave us a shot in the early years. I shout out to Keystone RV, which was one of my first big customers. Was Bob at Keystone, and so
Bob Pettit.
Yeah, and so Bob gave me a shot in the early years there.
He's still a customer.
03, 04, still a customer today, right? But him and Brent gave me a shot, and back in the day when we had under a dozen team members, and we were figuring it all out, and so that really then in the early 2000s and growing into 2000s really gave us a platform to say we kind of are creating a product line. Darren, talk about that.
Yeah. So one thing that I was, I went. This is probably in 2008 or not, probably at least 2009. No, it'd be later even than that. Maybe probably 2010. I came into sales in 2010. I got married in 2010. So that year I came into sales, and I went to Dad. And I was sitting down. I was telling Dad, I was like, Dad, we need a product line. I was thinking, I look at all these other manufacturers in the area. There's other manufacturers in the area too, like other industries, like attachment industries or skid loader attachments or whatever. And I look out there and I look at their lots, and they're full of just two different part numbers, just mass production. And I was envious of that because I was like, man, that'd be so cool because if we could sell a bunch of them, then we could make a bunch of money and it'd be easy. We draw it once and go.
Yeah, you were getting weary of the one-offs
I
because
was getting rid of them.
yeah.
And so I asked Dad, I said, why? What we need a product line. I said, Dad, we need a product line. Okay, I was thinking, let's find this one thing and go. And obviously, mass production of mass producing, products is also a good industry. It's just different. And Dad told me, he said that we have a product line. And I was like, and as soon as he said that, I was like, it hit me and gave me a whole new perspective to what he had been working on very hard to work on, and he needed help to develop. But like that gave me it clicked.
Kyle, explain what the product line, what Darren's referring to. What was that product line that Dad was referring to?
Well, I want to back up a little because I didn't say how I got into the business too before that. But in 08, I dropped out of high school at 16. I finished 10th grade. I have one more grade than Ryan and Darren, so obviously I'm a lot smarter.
A little bit smarter.
I got my GED too, which I've never had to use for anything, but I did get my GED. Well, 08 was crazy. I dropped out in 08, and 08 was crazy downturn in the economy, especially around here. I think if the national unemployment rate was about 10%, Elkhart County rate was about 20%. So it was
rough times, very rough times.
I remember Obama visiting and that kind of thing to talk about it all. But basically, when I dropped out, all of a sudden there was no work, and so I worked for a couple of weeks. I was working part-time in the summer. I mean, full-time in the summer and then part-time in the winter before that. But then now I'm 16 and want to work. And then Dad, I think at that point there was about 8 or 9 guys, if I remember right. And then we had to do a layoff, and I was one of them. And when I got laid off, I said, Dad, okay, I'm gonna go get a job at McDonald's or something like that. I remember specifically sitting in his office telling him that I'm gonna go get a job at McDonald's. I need to do something. And he said, well, you can't go. You're laid off, but you can't go work at McDonald's because we still need somebody to paint. And I said, well, what does that even mean? So I'm not getting paid. He's like, yeah, just deal with it. I said, okay. So obviously he was paying for my food and my clothes, so I couldn't. I didn't
your house.
Yeah, I didn't really have to do much else. So, but anyway, so I ended up painting for free for a couple months, I think, and then
I did not know that.
And then officially got back on the
I bet
payroll.
he got paid. I bet Dad handed him,
Yeah,
because
it was
Kyle's a
not
baby,
bad.
so Dad will take care of him.
He was always the baby. Yeah.
But I think that what's also happened, this is the recession times, scary times, no work.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff, and then just right around the corner from 08, when we bought our first CNC machine, I think it's very, very important that before we get into product lines, you don't, as a business owner, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're missing out on if you don't have it, and so you don't believe it until you're using it and it's part of your workflow.
Yeah.
And so when we bought a Vicon plasma automation, CNC 5x20 HD plasma. In 2009,
We still have it.
We still have it. It's still working every day.
I thought it was 2007.
Still 2009.
Was it really?
And because I was the first guy running it, I would have still been in school. So,
Yeah,
anyway,
I literally thought that was 2007. That's
no,
crazy.
2009, January 2009. I remember very specifically is when we
I
started.
remember unloading it off the truck.
Yeah.
It was a big day. It was our first nice machine.
I think
ever.
it cost about 120 grand, something like that, and it was a massive purchase, especially in a down economy. And we had no clue how to run a CNC, piece of machinery. And so I started learning, and the guys out there, they're in Meadville, PA, great guys. They basically trained me how to be a CNC operator. And anyway, but it totally changed the idea of what we could produce. If you could accurately produce parts every time from a CAD file to actual product, it changed so much back into what Darren's talking about.
At the time, we had. I remember we were talking about that purchase. We had thought, well, we could probably keep the machine busy one day out of 5. Was our thinking.
We had justified it. ROI that.
And we used to, and we also back in the day, we should mention this too. Like when we bought our first hem saw, it was a vertical band saw. We used to do custom saw cutting for one of our suppliers.
Yeah.
And it was so we'd get 3-inch shaft in, and we'd cut it. We'd be cutting for days, running, and so we got paid for that, and I'm sure we made a little bit of money.
$3 on that. Yeah.
But it's we tried some of that repetitious stuff, and we soon found that's not for us.
What was crazy is I think that's a really good point, guys. I think it was crazy, and I this is triggering things in my memory that I haven't thought about for years, honestly. Like I remember like the ROI justifications that we did. We were like, we're going to buy this hem saw, which I think was 1995. That was in the 90s. That thing was old already. Yeah. It was old in the area you're talking about. But every time we would do this justification saying we're going to do X amount of work for other people and justify that machine with that. But what happened really quickly is it was cutting our own products.
It grew
really quickly.
It grew our business.
It grew our business, and we had the equipment to do it in-house, and it gave us control to do that.
Control.
And we're kind of control freaks, and so we today have really tried to gain control of every area of the business, so we're able to keep promises to customers as much as possible. So let's go back to we're in the middle 2000s here, late 2000s. Kyle, you're saying 09 was when you kind of came on then full time.
08, yeah.
08, 09.
Summer,
okay.
Yeah.
And so where does that take us to? We're in that era then. We have at that point, I would say, guys, my memory's rough here, but 20 at that time? Yeah.
No. It was 10 or 11.
10 or 11?
Yeah.
I think we had 25 employees by 2012.
Okay. All right.
But so it's, yeah.
I have this chart. I have this chart back in my office that I look back at sometimes, but it's always blurry on what years were what. It's hard to remember it all. But it's give us a little different peek, Darren, from that area, from that era, from your perspective. So you had gotten married. You're married a couple years now. I remember you
got married in
2010. So let's just go to that moment there. So I remember Darren talked to me about, what am I going to do in the business? What am I going to, what's my role in the business? And I was the general manager ish. Again, remember Dad had kind of checked out, so I was kind of running the place, but Dad was there every day. I was there guiding, directing, but as far as dealing with employees and hiring and all that was on me.
I think we missed a big pivotal thing was the big shift was way back, Ryan, when those consultants came. Yeah. That story is the most pivotal.
Yeah, I think we'll hit that a different. That's a whole episode by itself. I want to do that. I want to do that about sales.
Yeah.
We basically what Darren's saying is we learned the importance of sales. And there'll be an episode coming in probably in a few weeks here where we're talking about the importance of sales, and it's a really big deal.
Sales and just
delegation, right? So
delegation and putting people in the right spot.
We're blowing past a lot of stories, a lot of lessons that we've learned the hard way, for sure. Mm-hmm. But I'm trying to give a little bit of history about how we got to 2026.
So then 2010. So I was in sales, and I love custom. I'm VP of engineering now. So I have a great team. I don't do it myself. I have about 20 engineers on my staff, and we just hired our first PE too. So we have a PE on staff, and I have a great, fantastic team. To design all kinds of custom stuff. But one thing I love doing, I love figuring things out. So when I got into sales, I gravitated towards the weirder the better, basically. I did some standard stuff, but
is that true, Kyle?
Oh my goodness!
If
it was, Darren would sell something for half price. It's kind of like Dad. Half price and 3 times more complicated than he planned for. Yeah. It was as a regular, and then it would. I remember getting into sales when I first got into sales, 2017, taking over some of Darren's existing projects.
Oh my goodness!
One of them was to a local company,
train wreck,
Hollywood. And I went through something. I think we charged them $7,000 for it, and when I went through it and quoted the way it actually got built, it was probably like $25,000. But that was just a normal Darren.
That's why
job.
Darren's no longer in sales.
Darren was not a profit generator.
No,
but he thought of cool ideas.
But quite honestly, though, Dad wasn't either.
Hollywood was is still a very good customer.
They are. So you earned their trust.
Fantastic.
Based off my foundation that I started.
After all the losses,
No, but so I gravitated towards the more custom stuff. So one company that we ran into was Unifrax, and they're still in business. I think they changed their names, possibly, but they're up in New Carlisle, Indiana, and they build
a big new data center.
Close to and they make high temperature installations for firewalls in cars and also aerospace stuff. Mm-hmm. So really complicated project. So we started off doing a project there. Jack got us in there. Jack Corbin got us into there.
Oh, sure.
One of our sales guys. And then I took that account over and then we dove into really custom fabrication, pressure vessels, all kinds of stuff that I learned a tremendous amount about. And honestly, we just, after several years of doing that kind of work and after a lot of failures, and they were gracious to work with us.
Yeah.
We went down that road too far. way too far into this
Buoyant Beauty
specialty.
and Kick.
into the custom world. Yeah.
And then we customers like Buoyant Beauty, like Kick Custom Products and Elkhart. We did a lot of custom for them, but they kind of have a lot of products that are kind of in our wheelhouse still. So with mezzanines and platforms, we just kind of had to find. We were in the process of finding what our niche is and where the outsides of our boundaries are.
Yeah. So what I want the listeners or the audience to feel here is that it was 2-3 decades of wrestling, at least 3 of wrestling with who we are and what we're going to do to make a buck, right? And honestly, making a buck was really, really hard in the early years. Like we grew up with absolutely nothing. I mean, I never felt poor, but we drove a wrecked 86 Mazda B2000 pickup
that you wrecked
5-speed
again.
that I wrecked again. Yeah, my dad got it. We bought it wrecked. My dad fixed it all up. I wrecked it again. I mean, just shortly after.
We went out on an out west trip when I was 7 or 8 years old, and Dad took a personal loan out for that.
Yeah, I think he borrowed $10,000 because he couldn't afford to take our family on a Western trip.
Yeah,
but he wanted to do one big trip with the family, and the business was not very profitable.
But Dave Ramsey's wrong on that one because it was the best money he ever spent. So.
Yeah. Now, knowing what we know now, with parents both being gone, of course, best investment Dad had ever made. It was a 3-week Western trip. We never did things. We worked. We grew up working. Evenings after dinner, after supper, we'd go out and work. We'd go out and sweep the shop, sweep the floor.
Our house was about 300 feet.
Yep.
It's still there. That house is still there. None of us live there, but right
on
there.
On the current property where the business is at.
I don't
right?
think people that know PWI today understand how much of a farm service thing we were. I remember all the time farmers knocking on our door at 5:45 at night saying, hydraulic hose busted out in the field.
Yeah.
I need to go because I need to finish because it's raining tomorrow.
Yeah.
It was so common. It was just what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. But I want to set the tone here as saying like this has not been a, Dave Ramsey talks about this a lot. He talks about, overnight success. No, he said, I've been doing this for 3 decades. And finally we're realizing a little bit of profit and some success all of a sudden, but it's not overnight. And we spent 3 decades trying to figure out who we are and what we do and what makes money. And it was very, I remember being very, very discouraged even in the 2000s, early 2000s, where like I saw my friends, business owners, my in-laws, my other companies I worked with buying new trucks, buying brand new F-150s and buying a Lariat or a King Ranch truck. And I was like, how is it even possible? We're working our butts off. We're working twice as hard as they are to get half the profit. How's that even? It didn't seem fair. It didn't seem, but we wrestled with that, and finally, we found some things that work, right? And so I want to fast forward now to 2017. So in
2013 is when we gave up farming, once and for all. Like we didn't do farm repairs after 2013.
Yeah,
So
was that? Yeah. I would have not known that year, Kyle, but we were doing a lot of other stuff up past 2017. So let's just fast forward. So just picture this 3 decades of business, very small. When Trevor, who was my assistant, hired him in 2019. Awesome dude, jumped in. He always that 2019 time frame always helps me understand. We were employee. He was like employee 57 or 59 at that point. Go back to 2017. Go back to 20. That was 2019. But 2017, my dad has been alone for 13 years. My mom had passed away again in 2004. He'd been alone for 13 years. He gets diagnosed with cancer. But that story is a story in itself. But he didn't have his will figured out. He didn't have anything figured out as far as his estate plan or his trust. Nothing was figured out. And I was driving again. I was the general manager, president-ish. In 2016, 2015, those years. And I was driving with a friend back from Pennsylvania one day, and he scared me to death and said, if your dad doesn't have stuff figured out, Ryan, your business is actually growing now. It's actually, you actually are building some value. There actually is some assets now to start talking about. And it was like, yeah, I guess, whatever. He said, well, I said, well, Dad's perfectly healthy. He's 59 years old. 60 years old, whatever he was. I said, I don't, there's no plan. He said, well, you go back to your dad's office tomorrow morning and you make sure that he figures some things out. So, And so I did that Monday morning. That was on a Sunday. Monday morning, I went back to my dad's office and said, "Hey, Dad, I was talking to a friend of mine and a person that my dad respected as well. I said, his dad also passed from cancer. So I think we should be working on what's next and what would happen if you get hit by a bus tomorrow. What happened if you get cancer? I mean, that'd be terrible. And how are we going to deal with that?" And Dad was always very. I will say he was the savviest business person in the world. He was fantastic at relationships, and so Dad really was open to
design.
Yeah, product design and relationships. He's really good at making a buck. He cared a lot more about relationships than making a buck. It was always a much more important thing to him than that. People would sit in his office for hours, right? So I sat in his office that morning and said, "Dad, we got to figure something out here." And I'm the oldest.
Ryan, can I pause you one? I think it's very important. From 2004 to 2017, it wasn't like Dad wasn't super involved in the business. He was incredibly involved in the business. He just didn't. Ryan had the vision, especially in the later 2000s and then especially 2010s. Had like, hey, I'm gonna keep pushing this.
Yeah.
Dad was always in support of what Ryan was doing.
Sure.
But it wasn't like Dad was still very excited about putting a new building up, whatever it was. It was
as excited as he could be.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Well, it was. But
There's shadow hanging over him all the time. You'd go in his office. I mean, what you don't understand, Kyle, is I was trying to run the business, and he was supposed to draw this project up that I had just sold. And I'd go to his office at 10:45 in the morning, and he's bawling his eyes out.
Yeah.
And and I was like, I don't even know what to do. I got a customer here, so I walked back out, and there was a lot of dramatic emotions for a decade or more. It was just rough.
He just wanted to go to heaven to be with Mom.
Yeah,
that was what it was.
His heart kind of left, and again, he was there every day, and I'll get to that part of the story. I mean, so when he was gone, we felt his loss massively as well. So it's not like he wasn't there. It's just it was a challenge to run a business and grow a business with the owner and CEO at the time and chief engineering officer to be in that state of mind, because it was rough for him and for us. So I want to throw in there that through those years we started having kids, and he was a great grandfather. I mean, our kids, so he dumped his soul into our kids and loved them. Our kids absolutely adored their grandpa. So that gave him a lot of energy when we started having some kids. My sister and I and others.
Yeah. So one thing that one thing I always remember from Dad is that years ago our neighbor Mike had an excavator he wanted to sell, an old excavator that he wanted to that Dad wanted to buy, and it was a mid-size Kubota excavator, and Dad said he wants to buy this thing. It was not much money, and so, but I was like, told Dad, I said, it doesn't make any sense. I said, this is like maybe 2015 or so. Yeah. And I said, Dad, it just doesn't make any sense. I said, why don't you just, if you want to play around in the dirt, then just call the rental company and have them deliver, an excavator over the weekend or for a week, and you can drive a brand new one. And why are you buying? Why do you need an excavator? I said, Dad, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. And Dad said, does it have to make sense? Yeah. I said, well, now that you say that, no, it doesn't. And so like I'm learning that. I'm 40 now, and so like the question is, when it comes to giving or doing things or buying things or enjoying life, does it have to always make sense?
Financial sense
is a interesting thought.
It is. So let's jump into that into 2016 now. Remember, I talked to my dad that morning about writing his will, his goals, and it was just him and I talking. I mean, again, Kyle was really young. Darren was still pretty young as well, and so Dad said, "I'll work on it." So I pushed him really hard for the next 6 months. I said, "Dad, where are you at this week?" And I said, I didn't bug him daily, but probably weekly for sure. I said, "Where are we at? We got to work on this. We got to work on this." And I just don't want something to happen here, and we have a mess, in our hands here, with what you want. And by the way, I had no strings attached to that at all. I had no idea what he had in mind. I said, do you want me to run this place? Do you want us to buy you out? Do you want us brothers and sisters to? Remember, we have 3 sisters who had worked in the business, in the early years, as we all did, and then we have, there's 3 of us brothers, of course. And so I said, what should we do here? So Fast forward to like July 17th that same year. This is February when I started talking about it, of 2016.
Yeah.
And fast forward to July, and he sent me, and Dad never could type, right? So he also was a high school dropout. I guess it kind of runs in the family. But he was a hunt and peck, typer. So it kind of drove me nuts because he couldn't type. He was probably the fastest hunt and peck guy I've ever met in my life, but he was still slow.
sure.
So he would write this email in Microsoft Word, or I don't even remember. It was Word Perfect back in the day.
Dad could have used AI to type emails.
Oh,
my
yeah,
goodness.
He loved it.
It was
so he's
efficiency
sitting there
to
at his
double-
computer, and he wrote me this one-page PDF document or a Word document that he dropped into an email and sent me an email in middle of July of 2016. And it basically just said, this is the plan I have for the business. This is what I want to happen. If something should happen, I'm only 60 years old, but this is how I think the evaluation should look like. This is the value that I think we should do this year. I think the brothers should buy the sisters out so y'all don't kill each other. And that was kind of his thing. He said, I just don't think it's going to work to have 6 siblings running the business, especially if the sisters aren't working in the business. That's kind of his heart. And I got that email. I was like, sounds fair, I guess. Sure, sounds great. And it's good. I saved the document on my desktop or whatever, so it wasn't on the server, so it was kind of private.
No, Dad was also really bad at file management.
Oh, yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah, he
so
is.
whatever file you got, you never trusted to know where
that
it
he
was
had
at.
saved. So I made sure I had it saved. So that's July of 2016. Fast forward only 4 months. It's Thanksgiving 2016, and my dad comes over to my house on a Saturday morning. I was doing something. I think I was putting a swing set in behind the house with the kids. He comes over on a Saturday morning, brings donuts over, which he did a lot. And he's sitting there on the tailgate of his truck, and he's like, I got this weird growth coming out of, underneath my arm here. And it was like a softball-sized growth. It's getting worse. I'm not sure what to do. It's probably just a weird cyst thing. I don't know what it is. And I said, Dad, you got to go check that out. That's crazy. You got to check that out. And remember, this is 4 months after he wrote his will, right? Never had a will. And he goes to the hospital and gets an MRI and all that stuff there, and he is full of cancer. In the days, just a few days before Thanksgiving of that year, terminal. They gave him 3 months, whatever it was, and with some treatments, he could extend that a little bit. But all that to say is so grateful for
Dad was very smart. So when he got the first, this is sad, but it's just how Dad thought. Deborah and I think Danae, several of us went to the doctor visit when we got the results back.
You're referring to your sisters, yeah.
Yeah. Deborah's my sister, and
Deborah, Danae, and Valinda are 3 sisters. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we went there to get the results back, and the doctor walked in the room without a clipboard, and Dad said, "Well, I know what that means." He just walked, and I was there. Doctor, he walked in. He goes, "Well, I know what that means." He goes, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, you don't have a clipboard," and then the doctor's like, "Well, he said," and Dad said, "That means there's no options," and he said, "No, you're right." So
Yeah, wow.
it was just Dad was pretty blunt like that, but it was also
Well, Dad wanted to know what Dad loved truth. He wanted to know. Tell me where it's at. And I remember the other thing he asked one day when I was with him was he said, "Well, they said, well, it's very treatable. We can treat this." He said, "Well, is it treatable or is it curable? Like which one?" He said, "Well, I didn't say curable. I said treatable, right?" So we hate the C word, the cancer word. He'd been obviously really, really tough in our family. Mom again in 2004 passed away, and then Dad by the middle of that next year in 2017 passed away as well. And but it was very, very grateful that he was able to talk to all of us siblings about what his goals were for the business. And had that not happened, we'd probably be in a much, much different place here. If you got hit by a bus, for example, without his will being written and his plan laid out as well. What's crazy is that what he wrote, 1 year before, ultimately about a year, before, was exactly what we did. I mean, there was no changes made to it, and it was fair. It was, I think it was fair. I don't know, and
we think that Ryan actually got the better end of the deal.
Oh, I made sure I was covered, of course, right? So
because he's the older brother.
Yeah, zero coercion there at all. But it was. I think he did a good job of understanding. Again, Dad was not really a numbers guy, but he really thought through the valuation.
Dad was not a numbers guy when it comes to like transactional maybe or whatever or jobs, but he was a really, really good investor, and he knew. And he was very smart when it comes to risks, and stuff. So like investments, risks, and business, just
Yeah.
Business wise, he was smart.
A great example of that would be like the combi lift thing. A combi lift is a sideways forklift, like the Lowe's trucks you see on the back of
In Ireland,
of a Lowe's delivery vehicle. But he
Basically allows you to take a long load right through a doorway.
Yeah.
It drives sideways. Yeah.
drive sideways. But Dad, I think told you, right? They said you will have. We're going to buy one of these combi lifts. The used one costs $50,000, something like that.
Yeah.
We're going to buy one, and you're going to have another one in like a couple months. And he did exactly that.
Yeah.
And it was now we have probably 5 or 6 in our facility, and they're amazing. We make a joke about that in sales a lot. We often sell combi lifts. I actually met a combi lift salesman in Denver a couple months ago and told him, like, you have no clue how many people have pushed to your product.
Yeah.
Because-
Away from cranes, right? Yeah.
yeah. But it's
Meet Kyle, our head of sales. He doesn't sell things.
We sell
right?
solutions even if they're not ours.
That's
right.
right. That's right. And that is our motto. So I want to start landing the plane here a little bit here on just the story. Okay. So Dad passes away in August of 2017, and it was a really, really rough time. And so what I very, very, very transformational, the most transformational moment or months in my life, for sure. You can ask my wife that, and my brothers probably as well. But something happened when Dad passed away, and I felt the loss of him being gone and the weight truly being on my shoulders. It felt extremely heavy to me. And we now had a business that was growing. Again, I'll probably botch the numbers here, but we were in the 40s probably that time, 45, doing 13 million in revenue that year. And so, again, we go back to the early 2000s. We weren't even hitting $1 million. I mean, in the 2000s, we were still a sub $1 million a year company. And I remember hitting 989, saying, "Let's just round it up. Let's call it $1 million. We're gonna freaking win." It's probably accounting error. So that's way
always
back.
like Ryan just cheating his numbers a little
Yeah, I love
bit.
cheating
Ryan is
numbers.
really good with making numbers work.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can make them always work. If it's a rah moment, we make it work. But either way, so remember going from one
to it there.
So let's just say 2003, $1 million in revenue. 2017, we were at 13. So we had experienced some growth. Okay. 2017 is where we're sitting at right now, and I saw pretty quickly that I needed help, and I was a boss, not a leader. I was a manager, not a leader in any way. And so I called up Dave Ramsey's organization called Entree Leadership, and I said, I need help. Like, I don't know what to do. And let's just set the tone here a bit with what was going on. And we could probably dig into its own episode some other time. We really should, talking about delegation, management structure, and all that, because we've learned some things the hard way. But back in those days, I mean, in that era, there would be this all office staff meeting. There was no leadership team. It was just Ryan, the boss, and everybody else did what I said. And I was a terrible micromanager. I was a terrible delegator. But I just didn't know. I didn't understand what to do. And Dad didn't know either. Dad never
He said was, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So past tense,
Month
of
ago.
course. So really, what happens? I went to my very first Master Series event at Entree Leadership, and we've been very involved with them ever since. And I joined a peer group for the very first time. I'd never been in a peer group. I've never hung out with other leaders in that way. I didn't do lunches with other people prior to that. But I started really, really saying, as John Maxwell says, "I am the lid," and that's one of the first books I read was 21 Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. And John teaches that you are the lid to the company. The company will always come up against whoever the leader is. And I saw that, it stared in my face. And what was ironic is that that book that I found off my dad's shelf. Dad had begged me to read that book, and Dad
read a lot.
He read a lot more than I did, for sure. He read a fair amount. And that book, he talked about, leaders are readers, Ryan. You need to be leading and you need to be reading. And so he tried to push me towards that. And I was kind of like, I don't need that stuff. Until after he was gone, I said, this is crazy. So I pulled up that book off the shelf in that same year and started looking at the things he had highlighted. It was very, very special. Today, John Maxwell's actually signed that very copy for me. It's very, very special. It's on my shelf here somewhere, I think. But what happened there is every single thing about the company changed. And so
it did.
So I cannot. I've told Dave Ramsey this personally. I've said, Dave, you have no idea what you've done with your teachings and what you've done for our business. And every single thing has changed. Starting in 2017 into 2018, it all changed. And in a nutshell, what happened? We talked a lot about product line. I want to end with the product line, what changed there. But I decided that it doesn't all have to be about Ryan. It doesn't all have to be about me getting my hands into everything. And so I built the very first leadership team that we had back in the day. And some of those same members are still on the team today. It's grown a lot. It's changed a lot. Obviously, we're doing this podcast now. So there's a chief marketing officer, Brandon, who's heading this all up. This is all Brandon's child here, his brainstorm. So and so we're doing a lot of stuff now that I could have never done with my own capacity. So we put in a VP of sales, and all of a sudden Ryan has no idea what all we're quoting, what all we're selling. And the first sales leader was Paul. Paul Hirschberger was his name, not our dad, Paul, different Paul. And so Paul built a sales team out, right? And Darren became the VP of engineering, and Ryan no longer knew what was going on with engineering. Darren hired and fired built that team up to be that. And then, the VP of operations.
Paul Helmuth, yeah.
PH. Right. That's a whole story in itself.
There's a lot
right
of
there.
Pauls. There's
yeah. Our dad's name was Paul, and there's multiple Pauls still in the company today. It's super confusing. They all have nicknames, and it's a little confusing. So, but all that to say is we built this team out, and I came back and said, look, after a week at Master Series in Nashville, I said we need to write our core values. We know what we stand for. We just have never put them on the wall. Nobody knows what they are, and so we wrote our first 10 core values, wrote a mission statement for the very first time. And I started actually truly letting go for the very first time. They might accuse me of being a control freak at times still, and I probably am.
Probably, yes.
But what's happened in the last 8 years is nothing short of God's hand and blessing, because it's far exceeded what I've ever thought we could ever do, to be honest. And I had big dreams. I thought I had big BHAGs and goals. We started doing things in that same era. Had our very first offsite,
right?
So three-day offsite strategy sessions we started doing, and I remember the first one was, I think, the very next year. We got 8-10 people in a room at a hotel. Had no idea what to do, but spent 2.5-3 days just hammering through what the next year could look like.
If you're a company, and everything Ryan's saying, I will say I disagreed and fought back on some of the stuff, and I was wrong. 100%.
Especially the
you guys both said you were wrong.
Yeah.
Can we put that down in the annals of history?
There's a few times in history that I've been wrong.
I always say I'll say I'm wrong. I just don't say it very often.
Yeah, we're used to that, Darren. Yes,
the culture. I think we agree with your executive team push and all that kind of stuff. But the culture was a hard thing for Darren and I to get behind. The culture shifts were difficult because it was a lot of touchy-feely.
It felt that way.
It felt that way initially, right?
And it just felt like I was in therapy instead of running a fab shop, and a welder. We're welders, What are we doing here?
Yeah.
And I think to a lot of people that come into the company now, even it can feel that way at first. It takes a little while for them to understand what we're kind of about.
But when a customer comes in, and this happens literally for sure every week, a customer comes in and they do a plant tour, and these are brand new customers or existing customers for 20 years that hadn't been to PWI yet, and they come here and they say the number one thing they say is it feels different here.
Yeah,
and they're sold, and the quote wasn't finalized.
Yeah. So I want to give John Maxwell credit for that, because I heard John speak a lot, and
Dave Ramsey.
Dave preached culture as well. I always say I learned the nuts and bolts of how to build a business from Dave, but what John Maxwell taught us is culture. John's the one that pushed me on saying it's all about your culture. If you want to grow this thing, if you want to actually build something great, then the culture is everything. It's everything, and make this place the best place to work in your community. And so, and that really came over the last 4 years, is that we really have transformation in our culture.
But the offsite, you mentioned the offsite.
Yeah.
So the offsite meeting every year you should, if you haven't done this, you really should. If you think you don't have much to talk about, trust me, you do. I don't care if you're a service company. I don't care if you're a plumbing company, whatever you are. Even Ryan, one of your friends, there's concrete pumping. I was talking to him, and they started doing offsite. Now, there's only one day because they.
Yeah, I told Greg, start with one day. It's okay. Start with one day.
But but it's amazing. It's amazing when you get people in the room, other people than yourself in the room, and you talk about when you start making an issues list on the board on the wall.
Yeah.
And you will find that you'll have several large lists when you're done of issues. And then you turn those into tasks, and then it takes a year to get them all done.
Turn them into goals. Who does what by when after that, right? So we talked about, the things we did. Ryan had to let go. Ryan learned to delegate, and we built a team who was doing things in the company that I wasn't touching, and it was a huge, massive deal for us. Then the culture shift happened, and so over the last 8 years, we've grown a lot. We just crossed 200 employees. We just celebrated the 200 employee mark yesterday in our all employee meeting. Another big thing we do for culture is we meet with all the employees in the same room every single month. And so it's a really big deal for us to get together in the same room. And for the crews that are traveling, it's live streamed for them to watch as well. So we make it a really big deal. And so I think that's part of the latest win for us is culture, and the culture is also allowing us to grow and expand at a rate that we never thought possible. And so I want to land that story with well, what else changed? Of course, we changed our culture, and we changed, and Ryan started delegating, started learning about leadership and reading books and actually studying what it means to be to not be the lid to the company, right? So that's all great. But the other thing that's really massive that we did is we also figured out how to get some laser focus and figure out who we are and what we do. So we gave you guys a long story. We gave them a long story, gave our listeners a long story about welding and farm repair and RV industry and all that, and doing all kinds of weird stuff for weird customers that we no longer do.
For customers that had weird products.
Yeah, we had great customers, weird products that were custom one-offs, right? So we decided one day that this product line that Darren was referring to, that our dad said, you have a product line. And we woke up one day and said, we have a product line. And it really came in the last decade. We said, this is crazy. Like, why can we not take these products to the nation? Why are we stuck in our county here? Why can we not serve customers like SpaceX and customers like national customers like Caterpillar and Ford and other companies that we're working for today that with the same products? We know how to build overhead cranes. We know how to build lifting solutions and solving space problems in manufacturing plants. We are manufacturers. And so having some of those solutions, offering them, and again, marketing around that. That was probably the biggest thing I'd say, is that you can't market something that's a mile wide.
Well, for sure.
So you can market things when they're narrow and laser focused, and that's what Brandon, a chief marketing officer, has done. Is that he's really marketed us across the country and gotten us leads that Kyle, as VP of Sales, is now answering to. Has built Kyle, you got 25 sales guys now.
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
I should know the full number, but yeah. I was also going to say, Brandon, who is the CMO now, he was also national sales manager for years.
Sure.
And it was just kind of this little side note to the company because it was barely producing anything.
Marketing?
No national sales.
Oh.
And credit to him and his team.
You should clarify that, Kyle. We have split in two different. Yeah, make that clear.
Basically, because everything is so regional focused to our 2-hour radius, a non-hotel job where our guys can drive to and come back. Was everything, and then we said, man, what if we did jobs outside of that? We had done some jobs out of state, but more with customers that we had acquired here locally, and so basically, what we didn't know if we could take this to the country.
Yeah,
and it totally, Brandon and his team, plus operations scaling for that, and crews being willing to travel, and costing and figuring out whatever if this is actually going to work, was such a pivotal moment for us to realize that, wow, we could actually sell around the country and be profitable at it, because we thought we could sell across the country, but we weren't sure if we could make it make sense.
Yeah.
Well,
and the first year, then it was 2024, I believe, was the first year that we actually sold more work outside of a 2-hour radius than we sold inside it. So for the longest time, national was anything outside our area, and regional was inside the
which was the mothership, which is where all our customers, foundationally,
we still
at.
have tremendously awesome customers.
Oh, we have great customers here regionally. It's a whole separate sales team still serving our local and regional customers here, but there's also a really big sales team serving customers all over the country.
Yeah, one thing I want to just note too is that we really appreciate our local customers, and I can name a bunch of them, but there's customers here that our sales guys go to every day.
Yeah.
Actually every day. or 3 to 4 times a week, put it that way. And so we love being that integrated part of their process.
And part of the community that way as well.
Yeah,
It gets us
so-
really connected with the community, and which
But
is
one thing we're missing here a little bit too is that I want a big, huge pivotal point for us is our automation software and how that allowed us. So basically, we started with through the encouragement of a local businessman, Len Morris. Len Morris is the guy from ViewRail. He's the one that pushed us into streamlining our design process.
Yeah.
And I fought back on it first, and I was like, I don't know where to start. Basically, was what it was. And then Ryan said, well, just start with one thing. Start with stairways, designing. And so instead of an engineer sitting down taking 4 or 5 hours to design a stairway, because for a stairway, you change it 1 inch and all the angles change, everything changes. So we started down this path. Finally, I got on board and went down this path, and it has completely transformed our, and so what
how we design and engineer products.
yeah. So what allows us to do is now we have customers actually on our website designing crane systems and stairways by themselves. And as soon as they hit go, and if they purchase it or if they approve it, every machine file, everything is already done. Every DXF,
Sent to the
every
server.
DSCV, it's already on file, ready to go. Unique part numbers, all that stuff is. So what's nice about it is that for cranes, for crane systems and for stairways, for all of our products, so it transformed what we're passionate about. We're passionate about giving custom industrial commercial solutions for customers around the nation. So when you're a countertop shop and you have a vacuum lifter and you're moving slabs around, your column centers for your 2-ton crane might have to be 22'6" because the trash can was in the way or the doorway's off. And so what allows us to do is our sales guys can run those automations and give quotes to customers without ever talking to engineers.
Quotes and solutions, to customers because they're never the same, right? Every application is different,
Which is the beauty. Which that is our product. That's so honestly, right now the economy is a little ups and down right now.
Yeah.
And but we've been blessed with a lot of orders because we're able to efficiently customize.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say too that there's maybe if we zoom out from all this here, our actual our go-to-market strategy, how we're going to market, how we're selling our stuff around the country is important to explain because we are different and we are kind of unique in the way we do it. There's a lot of other companies that are doing the same thing we're doing. I'm not saying we're alone, but we don't really subscribe to the traditional dealer model, and that's so different.
Tell them why we got to that point.
So basically, Tesla pioneered this a lot, as well. They said, why can't I just go online and look at buy a car for the right price, for the best price right there, with my financing options right there, all that stuff. And get it delivered, and there's even laws around that Tesla can't do it in every state. But basically, we decided that we don't think the traditional, especially in the crane world and in the mezzanine world, that you have to buy the product from a dealer, and then the crane manufacturer himself assembles those products and then installs it for someone, and in that or mezzanines and. That go-to-market strategy or direct-to-consumer was so pivotal and is still very pivotal for our success. And
Kyle, you were just in Texas yesterday visiting a customer, right? I mean, direct to another manufacturer who's building something, right?
Basically, people are sick of having to go through a dealer.
Yeah.
And
Amazon.
I was
Amazon happened.
reminded of this experience just very recently. I wanted to get a cover for a pool. Okay, and I found a automated poolcover.com. Okay. I went on there and it's great.
Is that literally what it's called?
I think something like that. It was a couple months ago. And I went on there and it said it was in Indianapolis. Indianapolis is 2 hours away from us. Perfect. I could drive down there, pick this stuff up, is where it's made or at least, the warehouse. And I put an RFQ on there and what do you know? Right away, the guy just sent an email back within an hour and said, hey, I can't sell to you direct. I want a pool cover to this size, but you have to work through a dealer. And I said, and I instantly was like, I don't even know where to start with a dealer and who are you dealers with? And, go to a list, look at a map and all this. This guy was desperate to try to sell me a pool cover knowing he can't.
Yeah.
And so all the
middlemen, his chances of making that sale got cut it to 30%.
I think
not easy.
I think if people now this is not 100% through every industry yet. I think we'll see a massive transformation over the next 20, 30
100%.
years where dealers start to fade away and people want to buy directly from the manufacturer. They want to have the custom solution or not even custom, just right from the manufacturer, because the middlemen and what the dealers are providing is getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
Some dealers are still providing a tremendous amount of service and quality of that service, and that's great.
Yeah.
And for them, they'll survive. They'll be great. But generally, I mean, if you could talk to, if you could buy a John Deere tractor right from the factory, and save that, 80,000 or whatever of on a combine that the dealer is taking, it'd be really, really, really nice. Yeah. But you could still go and get that,
I think we could do a whole other episode just on that because we're big believers in the direct to the customer, direct to the consumer sale.
Well, one last thing I'll say about that is that we're all about we're all about making it easy. So Amazon, you got Amazon where you just click on your phone and you buy it, and you go to mastercar.com, which is my favorite website of all time. Yeah, mastercar.com is
little plug there. Are they sponsoring this?
They should be.
Okay.
And one thing I'll say about them is that
producers over there, let's make sure mastercar.com gets us to get some sponsorship.
So this is how awesome they are. Okay, on top of their website, on the top right hand corner, which I go on their website like almost every day. Okay, and they have a little button that says, "How can we improve?" And I have multiple times typed in there. It says, "You can't. You're perfect." That's all I can say.
Darren's love affair with the vendor.
Because they make it easy. Are their parts 30% more? Yes, they are. But it's so easy. I click buy because it's easy.
Yeah,
and by the way, they're reselling components. Yeah. But they made it so easy. So that's our goal. We haven't reached that, but it's our goal.
So we want to land the plane here, and just this is episode 1. This is the pilot episode. We're trying this new thing out. We're trying to figure out what it looks like to add value to the manufacturing industry, to tell some of our story and how God's blessed us in our business. And we certainly do not
struggles.
We certainly do not have it all figured out. In fact, we're wrestling with things right now today. In fact, we probably shouldn't even be here shooting this because of all we have going on back in the office.
That's true.
And we're all every iron is in the fire right now, and some of that is just an overwhelming amount of sales coming in. We had a record sales month last month. Just celebrated that yesterday with the entire team as well. It's a good problem to have, and it's still a problem. And so what we're wrestling with right now is growing and scaling fast enough to be able to produce all the stuff that we've got sold. Just so everybody understands, Darren and Kyle, my brothers, they're going to be regular guests on the show. I'll also be having other guests on the show come on, every other week, every 3 weeks, whatever that looks like. We're going to mix things up quite a bit. I have a lot of friends in manufacturing and in business that have added a lot of value to me that I think could add value to our listeners as well. And so I'm excited about what's coming up there. I have a guest in mind for next week that's going to be pretty awesome. And so just some great conversations that we have coming up.
Well, another thing too, I want to say, Ryan, too, I'm a big fan of Alex Hormozy. If you haven't ever checked him out, definitely check him out online. Great guy, but he kind of made a thing about how personal content is so important. And he said, and don't worry, it will be cringy.
Yeah.
I know this will be cringy, especially if people know us.
Yeah.
Hard to watch.
Yeah, very hard. We're actually sorry we put you through this. But the whole thing is that it's we do want to hear your stories as well.
Yeah.
And so if you can comment on a video, say, hey, I already figured out that one thing you guys talked about. You guys don't know this. There's a supplier for this one. Blah 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 blah. That kind of thing in future episodes and that kind of stuff. We want to learn from you.
We're
guys
three
as well.
dudes still wrestling through the exact same stuff that all of you all are in your family businesses. We didn't talk a lot about we'll talk about more about in the future about just us three brothers getting along. Family, working with families, very, very hard. So the Forge is about being in the Forge, being in the fire every single day with what we're trying to build here and what you all are trying to build every single day. And it's tough. It's tough working alongside family every single day. We're very, very passionate brothers about what we're doing, and we argue at times, and it's
Only
been,
only occasionally.
only occasionally, which is a lie. And so just we're here to wrestle alongside you guys. We're here to bring some good content to you guys, being honest and transparent with some of our struggles and where we've come from. But today's episode was mainly about telling you the story, how we got here today, and what our father, Paul Miller, started back in 1979. And hope you can enjoy this journey with us, and just hopefully we can add some value. Hopefully we've had some value today already in this pilot episode. Hopefully, as Kyle said, it's not too cringy, as Alex Harbosi says. So it's been great to have you guys here. Thanks for joining me on the first episode, guys. It's great.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.